What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Let's dive right into our first news. Plessis has now shared his own perspective on the fight with Khamzat, and his comments have added even more fuel to the conversation. After his coach spoke about the loss, Plessis sat down with the same outlet and made it clear that while he respects the result, he wasn't impressed by how the fight played out. Plessis started by giving credit where it was due. He said Khamzat did exactly what he needed to do to win the belt, and he acknowledged that winning is what ultimately matters. At the same time, he admitted that the fight itself was not what he or the fans expected, especially considering all the hype surrounding the matchup. According to Plessis, it wasn't an exciting fight to watch, and he even said he felt bored while being in there himself. Despite the frustration, Plessis didn't deny Khamzat's effectiveness. He explained that Khamzat made sure to stay out of danger and fought in a way that completely neutralized him. Plessis believes that Khamzat deliberately avoided turning it into a real fight because he understood how different the outcome could have been if they truly engaged. In his view, Khamzat was smart, calculated, and focused purely on winning, rather than entertaining. Plessis said that if the fight had become more open and aggressive, the story could have changed quickly. That, in his opinion, is exactly why Khamzat chose to wrestle, control, and shut everything down. He described it as frustrating, but also admitted it was an intelligent approach. Khamzat negated almost everything Plessis tried to bring and made sure the fight stayed on his terms from start to finish. Even with the disappointment, Plessis made it clear that he sees this loss as a learning experience rather than a setback. He referred to moments like this as speed bumps that help him improve. According to him, the fight exposed a small but important piece of the puzzle that he now knows he needs to work on. He sounded confident and motivated, promising that in his next performance, fans will see the improvements clearly. Plessis finished by saying that this experience will make him better and more complete as a fighter. He believes that by mastering that missing element, he'll come back stronger, sharper, and far more dangerous the next time he steps into the cage. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to support the channel. Moving on to another news. The focus has now shifted to what's next for Plessis following his loss to Khamzat. According to his coach, the plan is for a return in April, with a fight booked for 3 rounds instead of 5. The potential opponents being discussed are Brendan Allen or Nassourdine Imavov. His coach sounded confident, especially if the matchup ends up being against Allen, suggesting it would be a rough night for him in a 3-round fight with Plessis. He also pointed out that it has been years since Plessis last competed in a 3-round bout, making the matchup even more dangerous. Moving on to another news. Dustin Poirier was a recent guest on the Ariel Helwani show and was asked about his relationship with Conor. During the segment, Ariel mentioned that Conor had congratulated Dustin after he posted about his son, hinting that things might finally be settled between them. Dustin's response was short, sharp, and crystal clear. He immediately shut down the idea, making it obvious that there is no peace and no squashed beef. While the message may have looked polite on the surface, Dustin wasn't buying it at all. His reaction showed that whatever history exists between them is still very much alive and unresolved. Moving on to another news. Pyfer has made a bold statement ahead of his upcoming fight with Israel Adesanya, suggesting that this bout could potentially be the last time fans ever see the former champion compete. Adesanya is set to face Pyfer on March 28th as he looks to prove that he is still a major force in the UFC's middleweight division. However, the hard-hitting rising contender believes the stakes are much higher than just another main event. The fight is scheduled to headline the UFC's next card in Seattle and will mark Adesanya's return to the cage following his loss to Nassourdine Imavov earlier this year. With momentum clearly on Pyfer's side, many are viewing this matchup as a critical moment in Adesanya's career. Pyfer recently spoke at length about the fight during an appearance on the Brady Bags show, where he shared insight into the negotiations and what he believes is truly on the line. According to Pyfer, he heard during discussions that Adesanya sees this fight as a measuring stick. Pyfer explained that Adesanya allegedly feels that beating a young, powerful contender like him would prove he still belongs among the elite. Pyfer described himself as a big, strong middleweight with serious knockout power, and said that if Adesanya can handle him convincingly and look like his old self, it could spark another title run. At the same time, Pyfer admitted that the opposite outcome could signal the end. He said that if he's able to beat Adesanya, he believes the former champion would seriously consider retiring. Pyfer even suggested that losing to him would feel like a passing of the torch moment, with no better opponent to hand things over to. While the comment raised eyebrows, Pyfer insisted he wasn't trying to be disrespectful. He also pointed out that the MMA community has been overly harsh on Adesanya lately. Pyfer pushed back against the narrative that Adesanya is completely washed, noting that he recently had a very competitive fight with Plessis. In Pyfer's view, Adesanya didn't look terrible and showed flashes of the fighter who dominated the division for years. Still, the facts remain difficult to ignore. Adesanya enters this fight on a 3-fight losing streak and will turn 37 later this year. Financially secure and already cemented as a legend, many believe this fight could define how his career closes. Adding to the intrigue, Adesanya currently sits as a slight underdog on the betting lines, making this matchup even more compelling heading into fight night. Moving on to another news, Jorge Masvidal continues to tease the possibility of a massive showdown with Conor at the UFC White House card, and the rumors are only getting louder. A few days ago, Masvidal reignited the speculation by hinting that real talks have taken place regarding a fight with the former champion. According to Masvidal, things are finally moving in a positive direction for a matchup that has been discussed for years. Back when Masvidal was deep in the title picture at welterweight, talk of him facing Conor came up multiple times, but never materialized. Now, with both fighters pushing for a spot on the UFC's upcoming White House event, Masvidal says his team is actively chasing the fight, and that genuine interest exists on all sides. While speaking with Ariel Helwani, Masvidal explained that his manager has been heavily involved in pushing negotiations forward and staying directly in contact with UFC leadership. He suggested that communication has been open and consistent, and from his perspective, the situation doesn't look bad at all. Masvidal made it clear that while he can't reveal too much, discussions are happening and dialogue is ongoing. Of course, there's always the chance that this is partly about building hype, but even so, the interest surrounding this potential fight is undeniable. Even with both fighters past their primes, a Masvidal versus Conor fight would still be one of the biggest draws the UFC could possibly make. In another interview with Death Row MMA, Masvidal went even further and broke down how he believes he matches up against Conor. He claimed that if other options are unavailable and Conor is looking for an opponent, no one else makes more sense from a business perspective. At the same time, Masvidal admitted that stylistically, he's a nightmare matchup for Conor. He said he's bigger, faster with his hands, and extremely comfortable against southpaws, calling it a bad fight for Conor overall. Masvidal didn't hold back, saying he would dominate the fight on the feet and physically overwhelm Conor. He even suggested that this is the real reason the UFC might hesitate to book the matchup, because they would rather give Conor someone he can beat. Despite that, Masvidal believes the fight would break records and deliver massive numbers for the UFC's partners. He confidently claimed that if the fight happens, it would bring in huge viewership and potentially overwhelm streaming platforms. With all the talk surrounding Conor's contract situation and the UFC's future plans, this tease from Masvidal adds another layer of intrigue. Whether it's hype or something truly brewing, the noise around this fight is getting harder to ignore, and the stakes couldn't be any higher. Moving on to another news, Arman goes off on Paddy Pimblett once again, and at this point, it's starting to feel like an ongoing rivalry that refuses to cool down. Another day, another set of comments from Arman, who seems more than happy to take shots at Paddy whenever a microphone is put in front of him. This time, Arman appeared on the One Night with Steiny podcast and shared his thoughts on the upcoming fight between Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje, and his words immediately set social media on fire. During the conversation, Arman made it clear who he wants to win. He openly said he hopes Gaethje knocks Paddy out, but then quickly added that he doesn't actually see that happening. According to Arman, Gaethje doesn't knock Paddy out, and if Gaethje wins at all, it will likely be by decision. In Arman's eyes, the fight only has two outcomes. Either Gaethje grinds out a decision win, or Paddy ends up getting his hand raised. Arman didn't stop there. He went on to claim that the UFC clearly wants Paddy to win this fight. He suggested that Paddy is being positioned as the favorite by the promotion, and even hinted that this is the exact reason why Arman himself hasn't been matched up with Paddy. Arman believes the UFC knows that if he fights Paddy, Paddy would lose, and that doesn't fit their plans. He even joked that if you asked Dana White directly who would win a fight between Arman and Paddy Pimblett, the answer would obviously be Paddy. After the interview went live, Arman doubled down with another sharp comment. He criticized Paddy for not promoting the fight properly and claimed that he, Arman, has been the one carrying the UFC on his back, with interviews, live streams, and constant media appearances. He mocked Paddy by calling it Fight Week, while saying he's the one doing the press run, telling Paddy to wake up, get to work, and stop making the UFC look bad. The shots keep coming, and the tension doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. Moving on to another news. Arman has floated a bold idea that would completely shake up how championships are decided in the UFC. He suggested running an 8-fighter Grand Prix, where competitors would fight over a 6-week period until a champion is crowned. In Arman's vision, the tournament would continue no matter what, even if injuries occur, ensuring that a winner is decided by the end. He believes this format would remove excuses and create a clear, live, undisputed champion in a short time. However, ideas like this would be extremely difficult to approve, mainly because of athletic commission rules, medical suspensions, and strict clearance requirements that protect fighters' health. Moving on to another news, Justin Gaethje recently opened up about what he considers the biggest mistake of his career. And it's a revelation that gives a rare look into the mindset of one of MMA's most feared lightweights. Known for his aggressive style and thrilling fights, Gaethje has built a reputation as one of the sport's most exciting competitors, but even the best make mistakes. Speaking to ESPN MMA ahead of his highly anticipated showdown with Paddy Pimblett at UFC 324, Gaethje reflected on his brutal knockout loss to Max Holloway in April 2024, which came with just 1 second left in the fight. Gaethje explained that his biggest error wasn't a physical misstep, but a mental one. He admitted that he approached the Holloway fight with the wrong mindset, treating it as a fun fight, and failing to fully recognize the danger he was in. He said he didn't tap into his primal competitive nature, which left him vulnerable. Gaethje recalled the intensity of that night, noting that seeing Holloway's face in the final moments was a wake-up call, and that the missteps began during preparation. According to him, there were a lot of mistakes made in my mind, and that flawed mindset is the primary reason he wants a rematch with Holloway. He emphasized that he wants another opportunity to correct those errors and approach the fight with the focus it demanded. Turning his attention to UFC 324, Gaethje made it clear that he's taking his upcoming fight with Paddy Pimblett extremely seriously. He outlined a strategy that shows he's thinking deeply about endurance and damage, saying he wants to drag Pimblett into the 4th or 5th round while inflicting significant harm. Gaethje described using the threat of being hurt as a way to push himself into his most primal, dangerous state inside the cage. He stated that his preparation for this fight has been 100%, signaling that he is dialed in and ready to execute his plan. Although Gaethje and Pimblett haven't been engaging in heavy verbal exchanges, his comments demonstrate that he is mentally locked in. Despite betting lines favoring Pimblett, Gaethje has the backing of some prominent figures in the sport, including Dustin Poirier, who recently told Ariel Helwani that he expects Gaethje to win the fight and even predicted a knockout victory. With Gaethje's mindset sharpened, his strategy in place, and a burning desire to right past mistakes, UFC 324 promises to deliver another intense and high-stakes showdown in the lightweight division. Moving on to another news, the MMA community has been expressing concern for Paddy Pimblett ahead of his big fight against Justin Gaethje at UFC 324. In a clip that recently surfaced on Tom Aspinall's YouTube channel, Paddy was spotted vaping, and fans quickly reacted, worrying about how it might affect his cardio. While it's true that some fighters, like Carlos Pratis, smoke and perform at the highest level, fans couldn't help but question Paddy's fitness habits, especially with a high-stakes fight just days away. Many commentators joke that Paddy's gas tank could be a problem if he doesn't finish Gaethje early, predicting that his energy could fade in later rounds. Some went further, suggesting that vaping and unhealthy habits outside of training camp could catch up with him over time. Fans noted that it was surprising to see Paddy vaping during a camp for what is essentially his first title fight, and several expressed disappointment, expecting a more disciplined approach from the charismatic fighter. However, not everyone was worried. Some observers pointed out that nicotine can enhance focus, reduce nervousness during fight week, and potentially aid with weight cuts. They reminded fans that many fighters, including world-class boxers, use similar routines without negative consequences. Comments highlighted that Carlos Prates and others have maintained peak performance despite smoking, suggesting that Paddy's choice might not be as damaging as critics fear. Despite differing opinions, the general consensus is that Paddy is a grown man capable of making his own decisions, and the discussion mostly revolves around curiosity and concern for his cardio heading into this crucial fight. While some fans remain skeptical, others see it as a non-issue, pointing to real-world examples of fighters who thrive regardless of similar habits. As Fight Week approaches, all eyes will be on Paddy's performance, and it will be interesting to see if these concerns translate into any in-cage effects. Whether vaping affects his endurance or not, the buzz around this topic has added another layer of intrigue to UFC 324, keeping fans engaged and talking as the countdown to fight night continues. Moving on to another news, Arman has made it clear that he's not happy with how the UFC is operating right now, and he didn't hold back when explaining why. According to Arman, the promotion should be rewarding fighters based on skill, hard work, and merit, not on social media numbers or online popularity. In his view, rankings should actually matter, and if a fighter is ranked and deserving, that fighter should be next in line for big opportunities, including title shots. Arman explained that if a fighter deserves to fight for the belt, then that fight should happen, regardless of how many followers they have online. He stressed that being ranked and consistently performing should be enough. For him, the sport should not be driven purely by business decisions or hype, but by fairness and competition. At the same time, Arman admitted that he understands the business side of things. He acknowledged that if he were in the UFC's position, he might make similar decisions, because at the end of the day, the company needs to make money. Still, Arman sounded frustrated and slightly confused about what's really going on behind the scenes. He mentioned that the UFC recently signed a new deal with Paramount, suggesting that this could be influencing how fights are being booked and promoted. While he understands the financial reality, Arman made it clear that he believes the sport would be better if skill and results came first, not followers and fame. That's it from MMA Pulse News. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for your daily dose of MMA news.